good evening and welcome to the regular meeting for the Akron Public Schools Board of Education for Monday, October 12th, 2020. Roll call, please.
Dr. Akbar.
Here.
Mr. Alexander.
Present.
Ms. Autry.
Here.
Mr. Bravo.
Here.
Dr. Hall.
Hi.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Here.
Mrs. McKittrick.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if everyone on the meeting could make sure that their microphones are muted and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. All right, we have a pretty full agenda tonight. We have several requests to address the board, along with a couple of very important discussion topics that we're going to bring up tonight. But we'd like to start with any community and school reflections from the board. And in the chat, if you will, there are a lot of extra folks on the call, and I want to make sure that I don't miss anyone. I'll start off by just saying a quick shout out to LeBron James, the LeBron James Family Foundation, Michelle Campbell and her family at LJFF for a fantastic conference that was put on called The Huddle last week. Really enjoyed attending. There were folks from all over the country that were joining us here in Akron to learn a little bit more about our I Promise network and the I Promise initiatives that we have. Our staff from the I Promise School did an outstanding job presenting, as did our kids. They were up there with panelists from all over the country, including graduates, that talking about their experiences in the I Promise School, and it was just a phenomenal experience. So many thanks to them. Big shout out. All right, we do have folks lined up in the chat. So Ms. Mansfield.
So Patrick, you missed a perfect opportunity to also congratulate LeBron on his championship last night. Can't let the night go by without saying that, and creating controversy as if there won't be enough out of this meeting by calling him the greatest of all time. At least in Akron, Ohio, I think we can say that and say it with complete affirmation and just let the haters be. Just had to say that tonight. I know he gave a shout out to his hometown, so we can't help but give a shout out to him. I also just want to thank Mrs. Hazlett. I mentioned in the last board meeting, she's a teacher, a fifth grade teacher at Miller South, and she had me in all of her Tuesday classes last week, and they were talking about a book that was about banning books by school board, and it was a fictional book, and they wanted to know a little bit about what we do and if I'd ever been able to or had ever been asked to ban a book. They had really great questions. They were engaging throughout. I will tell all the board members that you were all given shout outs in that meeting by me personally, and describing what you all do in your your day jobs, as I call them, and continuing to give to the board as well. So they were fascinated by that. And hopefully when we get back to what our new normal is going to be, then you'll all get a chance to talk to them as well. Got to tell the students that the only times I've ever been asked to even come close to banning things all involve the arts, which created great discussion with the Miller South crowd, as you can imagine. So I'll go ahead and stop there, but just a huge shout out to her students. I also got thank you notes from all of them. And so that filled my Google Docs. So that was a really pleasant week to have, thanks to them.
Thank you, Ms. Mansfield. Dr. Hall?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. The only thing I'm banning right now is sugar cookies in my household. My 2-year-old is rampaging right now. So if you hear screaming in the background, that's Daddy's fault for giving his child a sugar cookie before dinner. Anyway, I just wanted to echo some of the earlier conveyed sentiments, I think by Mr. Bravo, around as it relates to the LBJ Foundation huddle that took place last week. So there were some really thought-provoking sessions as related to sort of race, diversity, equity, and kind of this ongoing kind of contrasting and rethinking, the relationship between public, private, charter schools and the intersection with race and equity. So again, hats off and kudos to Michelle Campbell over at the foundation for pulling that together and doing it in a way that was, I was a skeptic at first, but they did it in a very, very safe, socially distanced way. I've never seen so much hand sanitizer all in one place all at the same time for consecutive days. So anyway, so it's very well done. And then I also just want to take a moment to acknowledge again all of the emails and phone calls that I've gotten over the last couple of weeks, especially this past week in particular, as we sort of move forward our conversation tonight, even as we sort of get sort of presented what a possible reopening plan would look like for school. So have gotten a lot of feedback from teachers and parents. In fact, I would say candidly, I spent probably 8-9 hours this week on the phone with teachers and parents. So again, I want to thank you all for the time that you took to compose those emails and the time that you took to send those text messages and the time that you took to spend on the phone with me, fleshing out your positions and why you feel the way that you do. So it was a pleasure and an honor to spend that time with you. So that's all I've got, Mr. President. Back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Autry, and then Dr. Akbar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also, as well, quickly just wanted to acknowledge and thank the many teachers and the many parents and guardians who reached out to me in the last week or so, just taking the time to let me know where they stand on issues about returning, reopening, etc., attending school in person. I really appreciate that. And also just a special shout out again to the teachers and the families and the students who are entering, I guess, the halfway point of the grading period, who have been working so hard to make this remote learning environment the best. I think a lot of them are starting to get their groove now. They're starting to get some consistency and getting their routines together. I know it has not been an easy task, but I know that they're working hard at it. I just want to let them know that it's not unseen and thank them for their continued work with educating our children.
Thank you, Dr. Akbar.
Yeah, I want to do the exact same thing that Diana did. A lot of my conversations in the last 2 weeks have been, well, one about education and the education committee for the Racial Equity Task Force for the city. But outside of that, it's been with teachers and parents, more parents this week than teachers, but still, I have a lot of emails to return, but there's been a lot of conversation around reopening plan and the opportunities to move forward with that. And really, I want to thank everyone for their very thoughtful and thorough responses and emails. And if I haven't responded to you yet, I will. And the last thing I want to do is thank the teachers and administrators for all of their work they've done with our students. One of the things that came clear in both the conversations that were not necessarily the most positive and those that were a little more positive was that they respect the jobs that the teachers are doing and just the amount of respect that everyone has for all of the work that it takes to put on online learning, even if they wanted to their kids back in school. So I just wanted to make sure I said that.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Well, that is a perfect segue then into the next section of our agenda, which are our requests to address the board. And I'd like to echo the sentiments of my colleagues from around the table, virtual table anyway, to say thank you to the many folks who have been reaching out as we start to have the discussion again on around returning to the classroom. We do have 3 people joining us this evening that have requested to address the board, and so we're going to take those in turn as they're listed on your agenda. And we're going to begin with Stephanie Childers. We'll move then to Mr. William Reynolds and then Ms. Jennifer Klein. And as a reminder to all of the folks that are joining us this evening on our virtual meeting, we've invited you to the virtual meeting. You have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not typically respond to or answer questions during session, but we will follow up with you or have a member of our staff follow up with you depending on the circumstance after the meeting. And again, we want to thank you for taking the time out of your Monday evening to join us. And so Ms. Childers, we'll start with you first.
Thank you, everyone, for allowing me this opportunity. I have just learned that the governor is going to be reducing the state perimeters for social distancing for school districts from 6 feet to 3 feet. This will increase the risk of COVID exposure for educators. What is the rush to return back to in-person instruction when you consider the following? 1, the quality of online instruction has increased from March until now due to the professional development trainings that were offered to teachers at the beginning of the school year to improve online instruction methods. 2, we are getting ready to begin cold and flu season, and there is no way for educators to differentiate between students having the flu and COVID. 3, there is no vaccine for COVID. 4, when we are on the brink of bringing kids in and out of houses for Thanksgiving and Christmas breaks, where the kids have a high risk of being exposed to friends and family who may unknowingly have COVID and have not been practicing social distancing. 5, modeling is not being displayed by what you expect of others because your board meetings continue to be virtual. If it is so safe for teachers to teach in person, why not resume your board meetings in person? 6, according to CDC, COVID can be spread by people who do not have symptoms and do not know that they are infected. 7, any blended learning model increases the potential for spreading this super spreader virus, which means that if 100 of our students contract the virus, they will infect 100 to 200 parents. Those 100 parents can then infect another 100 to 500 people with this lethal virus, depending on the amount of people that they would come into contact with daily. When APS parents are infected, this takes away their ability to earn income, and this could potentially mean the death of students, parents, teachers, and administrators of APS. As of September 24th, Ohio school districts have had 394 new cases of COVID. 9, according to CDC, the best way to prevent COVID is to avoid being exposed to this virus. 10, there are 21,000 plus students in APS, which include 47% African American, 30% white, 10% multi-race, 5% Hispanic, 8% Pacific Islander, 0.1% American Indian. According to CDC, minorities are at a higher risk of contracting COVID for the following reasons: discrimination, healthcare access and utilization, occupations, educational, income gaps, wealth gaps, and housing. These factors and others are associated with more COVID cases, hospitalizations, and death in areas where racial and ethnic minority groups live, work, play, and worship. Community faith organizations, employers, healthcare systems, providers, public health agency, and all others have a part in helping to promote fair access to health and especially protecting minority faculty, students, and parents in this district. What if you, your daughter, your son, your child, your close family member was forced to return to a building with students and people who have COVID, but this would be avoided by one decision? What would you do? The obvious choice would be to continue remote learning, and you are currently modeling that today in virtual board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Childers. We appreciate your comments. Next up, we'll hear from Mr. William Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds, whenever you're ready, and Mr. Pendleton is helping us keep time tonight.
Mr. William Reynolds. My kids are both at Helen Arnold CLC, and I wanted online learning for young children, and at children is an IEP student, and one of them is not. So they're not one that's on the young end of the spectrum and one that's on the older end. 5 hours of screen time with this. And here's the other issue that I have with it. how bad too much screen time can be for children. Or I would ask that you would seriously consider it still be online, fine, but tender the most IPs. I would ask that you would seriously consider some sort of it's just not working. I also see kids that there with them, and it's like constantly technically are on muting, and these are 5-year-olds. So consider my children and the other children that are very young in considering the next step with online learning versus in person versus stand that it is a very hard decision, but I believe if these kindergarten stay online, we're going to recognize in the very near future way behind because the online learning just doesn't work. So thank you for
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. And I do believe that we were able to get the gist of your comments, though there were a lot of video issues while you were speaking. So I would also ask that maybe you submit some comments to us in writing that we can share with the rest of the board. And if you'd like to send them to me, you're more than welcome to. And we'll get your comments out to the rest of the board, just in case they.
Certainly.
Okay.
I will send an email, and the same board meetings they're running into during the day at school. So.
Okay. Thank you. All right. At this time, we will hear from Ms. Jennifer Klein. Ms. Klein, whenever you're ready.
All right. First of all, thank you for allowing me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight on behalf of the students, families, and teachers that want their kids back in school full time. My name is Jennifer Klein, and my son Noah is a junior at STEM High School. My son has loved his time at STEM, especially the robotics club, where he has found his niche in life and has flourished. In March, 2 weeks before the shutdown, my son and his team won the skills championship in Ohio and received a bid to nationals, ranking 24th in the country. To say they were excited was an understatement. Late nights, long technical discussions, rebuilds, strategizing, all to earn an even higher ranking and bring home a trophy to STEM. And then COVID hit and it all went away. We were told back in March, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and we complied. Then things started to get canceled. Girls were told to go home warming up on a basketball court for a championship game they would never get to play. Graduations that would never happen, proms that were never danced, robotic tournaments that were never played. We complied and the curve was flattened, but still we are closed and still our kids are not in school. When COVID first hit, it made sense to close. We had no idea what we were dealing with, but it's now October. We are starting to get an evidence-based picture of how school reopenings and remote learning are going, and the evidence is pointing in one direction. Schools do not, in fact, appear to be major spreaders of COVID-19. The Brown University is tracking information on the openings of schools across the country. It now includes over 680,000 students, 63 staff, and 1,940 schools, most of those public. Out of that, there are 413 confirmed student cases, or 0.061%, and 237 confirmed staff cases, or 0.38%, since schools have opened. In Summit County, there have only been 36 student cases, or roughly 4 out of every 10,000 students that have been affected since September 7th, and 46 staff members. There are no massive outbreaks. Most schools are one and done. In fact, since January of 2020 in Summit County, there have only been 63 deaths under the age of 75 out of a population of over 5,000. One might argue that any risk is too great and that schools must be completely safe before local governments move to reopen them. But this approach ignores the enormous cost to children from closed schools. Since the virus has hit, no child from the age of 0 to 19 have died from COVID in Ohio. What is killing our kids is depression. In Summit County, 3 children have committed suicide, 61 total in Ohio since January of 2020. My husband and I see it personally with our own son. He is an upbeat, positive, loud kid, or was before March. We have seen him slowly slip away. There's more anger in his tone, sadness on his face, and lack of interest in school. If you were to talk to him, he would tell you that online school is bad, and he misses interacting with students. It is not that the teachers aren't doing their job, but when you are in a class online, there's no back and forth, no facial expressions, no talking. It's just school. School is more than an education. It is relationships, a safe place for these kids, food, mental release, socializing, and comfort. I ask you to weigh the cost of the kids out of school versus in school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Klein. We appreciate you, and we appreciate Ms. Childers and Mr. Reynolds for joining us this evening to share some perspective with us. We appreciate you.
Mr. President, if I may, can we request, I'd love to see the Brown University study that Ms. Klein is referencing, if she wouldn't mind sending us the link or through you, so that way you can distribute to the rest of us. I would love to read through it.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, at this time, we're then going to move into the next area of our agenda, which is the Section 2.1 2020 Inspiring Programs in STEM Award. And so I am going to hand that over to our team.
We're going to have directly to Mrs. Mansfield and Mrs. McKittrick so that they can introduce this exciting award that we're here to celebrate tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McWilliams-Woods. Good evening, everybody. The Instructional Policy and Student Achievement Committee was pleased to learn of a special distinction bestowed on Akron Public Schools, and we've asked for the award to be featured tonight. I'd like to share a short video that highlights the program from which the award stems. Thank you.
Akron Public Schools Healthcare in Progress, HIP program, in partnership with Kent State University and the University of Akron, received the 2020 Inspiring Programs in STEM Award from Insight into Diversity magazine, the largest and oldest diversity and inclusion publication in higher education. As a result of the 20-year partnership between Kent State University, the University of Akron, and the Akron Public Schools, the HIP program has received national recognition. This partnership with Kent State University and the University of Akron has been in existence since the year 2000. At that time, 3 major hospitals came together with 2 major universities to form the Healthcare in Progress HIP initiative for the betterment of community health. The HIP program introduced students to various medical-related fields and arranged visits to hospital settings to provide opportunities for students to experience healthcare and medical practice in action in 8th grade. Between 2000 and 2017, 8th grade students representing every Akron middle school experienced 3 field study visits in hospital settings during the school year. These visits were followed up with optional week-long summer programs in collaboration with what is now Cleveland Clinic Akron General, Summa Health System, Akron Children's Hospital, Northeast Ohio Medical University, Kent State University, and the University of Akron. During the last 15 years, the HIP pipeline began to evolve into a 9th through 12th grade program with our partners, Kent State and the University of Akron, taking a lead role. During the summer prior to students' sophomore year, the 4-day Kent State University Research Symposium gave students an opportunity to dive deep into career exploration in healthcare fields and experience an overnight in a college dorm. The experience was hosted by Daniel Diaz-Nielsen, Director of the Office of Diversity Outreach and Development in the College of Education, Health and Human Services, Kent State University. Mr. Nielsen is sharing in this award, representing Kent State University. In the summer prior to the student's junior year, the University of Akron hosted the HIP students for 3 days. Students prepared personal statements for college applications and took part in speed career talks, which were one-on-one conversations with healthcare professionals. The experience was hosted by Greta Lax, Center Director, Akron Region Interprofessional Area Health Education Center, College of Health Professions, Dean's Office, the University of Akron. Ms. Lax is also receiving this award for the University of Akron. In the senior year, the HIP students participated in fall and spring seminars to assist them with scholarship and college applications. In 2018, we included leadership training with Rachel's Angels to prepare students to speak about the opioid crisis in health classes across middle and high schools throughout the county. A highlight of September 2019 was when a group of Rachel's Angels were invited to address a congressional caucus on treatment, addiction, and recovery in Washington, D.C. with Congressman Ryan. Here are a few testimonials from 8th through 12th grade students over the past 20 years. Their comments talk about their enjoyment with the HIP program. When HIP participants were asked to evaluate the program, 100% of the participants indicated they wanted to attend more programs like HIP. As the Akron Public Schools transform from traditional high schools to academy work, the HIP program is the platform the district emulated when developing other partnerships within the city and healthcare academies throughout the city. The last HIP class will graduate in the 2021 school year, but our goal continues to be the same as it was in 2000, to place graduates in meaningful careers with earning power where they can make positive contributions to the Akron and Northeastern Ohio region. Special thanks to Carla Chapman, who helped publicize this national award, recognizing the connection between the community and the classroom with STEM education. This is an important award, and acknowledging the award means acknowledging the leadership of Dr. David James, Dr. Ellen McWilliams-Woods, Mr. Nielsen, Ms. Lax, and Dr. Katrina Halassa. As a result of their tireless efforts, and with the support of this board and boards before them, programming like the Healthcare in Progress and now the College and Career Academies move forward for our students.
Thank you, Mrs. Gijic. That was a fantastic presentation. I'd like to invite Mr. Nielsen, Ms. Lax, and Dr. Halassa to join us by unmuting their mics, and I'm going to call on each of them individually. We've just heard a little bit about the Health in Progress HIP program being named as a recipient of this national award. Mrs. McKittrick and I were so excited about this. We definitely wanted to have this presented at a board meeting so that you all could congratulate these individuals who've worked so hard on this. We'd like to thank those who've worked tirelessly, starting first with Mr. Nielsen representing Kent State University. Thank you for all of your work for our students, and would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you to the entire board and Superintendent James. Very honored to have an opportunity to actually be a part of this award. because the heart and soul really came from the students of our great district. And I say that as a resident and proud member of the Akron public school system here. And so I'm really proud to be part of this with the students, and also really two great people who are absolutely easy to work with. And they lead with their heart in everything they do. And that is Greta Lax and Dr. Halasa, or Halasa as we love to call her. And so really, I want to say thank you to Akron Public Schools for allowing us the opportunity to be part of this program, and to really also spending the time today to recognize its greatness. And really, you can see the greatness in the students, and you can see the continuation of what we can do together from Kent State University, University of Akron, and of course, Akron Public Schools. So thank you for everything and for recognizing us. Thank you, Dr. Halasa, for allowing me to be just a part of this journey with you and Greta. So thank you all.
Thank you so much. Ms. Lax, representing the University of Akron, would you like to say a few words? First, thank you so much for all you've given to our students as well.
Thank you all for taking the time to recognize this incredible program. I think everyone knows, anyone here knows that works in this area, that none of this happens with just a few people around a table. That there have been people over the course of this 20 years, from Sally Massimi, who originally was at SUMA, to Sue Hobson at Cleveland Clinic Akron General, Mr. Lawson, who I see on the call, Dr. Akbar, Ms. Autry. So many people have been involved in this along the way. And I'm very, very grateful for having had the chance to work with them. Grateful to have had the chance to work with the incredible Akron Public School students that we've had, that we've been able to develop relationships with over the years. We've also had the privilege of seeing these students from Akron Public Schools become the medical students of today, become our nursing students, become students in our other health professions programs. And there's been not much more gratifying than seeing our kids succeed. Thank you all for this opportunity.
Thanks for taking some time with us tonight. Dr. Halasa, I don't toss around the phrase force of nature, but you know that's the one that I use when I refer to you all the time. And I'd love to have you say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to first thank the Board of Education, Dr. James, Dr. Ellen McWilliams-Woods, my boss, I want to call Ms. Karen Gijic, for always supporting me no matter what. I appreciate the term a force of nature, because really what fuels me every day is the students. I, as a student from Akron Public Schools myself, originally was going into medical school and was on the waiting list, and eventually fell in love with teaching when I decided to sub while I was waiting to figure out what I wanted to do with my life at 24 years old. And I will never forget the relationships and impacts that students had on my life, as well as I had on their lives that first year as a substitute teacher, fourth one. So you can imagine how that went way back when at North High School. And I loved every moment of it. And I have to say, Greta and Daniel said it both very eloquently. You know, it's our relationships with people. It's the people prior to us that created this foundation. And we were thankful enough to have the opportunity to move it forward to the opportunity of getting an actual national award. That is amazing. But here's the beauty of it. It doesn't stop here. It goes with our academies. And now we're going to hit students in a way that have all kinds of these aspects every day in their lives through the academy work. So I am so thankful for everyone on this call. I'm thankful for the foundation of the original Dr. Sparrow, who was part of that group that you know, Greta mentioned earlier, that started this foundation. And I'm thankful to end on a high note that is now going to be embedded in our academies. And again, thank you everyone for your hard work and everything you do to make sure that my life becomes easier so kids' lives can become easier. Thank you for all your tools and your effort and your love.
Thank you so much. She stole almost the rest of my script by thanking the rest of the folks involved. I do believe I got to sit in on the awards this year for this program. And I remember what reminds me is the incredible mutual admiration there is between, especially the three of you, but also remembering all of the positive things the students had to say in those awards about this program. So thank you so much again for coming. And special thanks to Dr. McWilliams-Woods, to Dr. James, and all the partners who supported and continue to support this as we move on into our college and career academy pathways. And thanks for letting the Instructional Policy Committee bring this forward.
Thank you,
Mr. President.
And congratulations to everyone involved. We appreciate the work that you put into our kids, and the strength of our partnership is really on display tonight. So thank you so much. Dr. Akbar, you had a comment?
Yes, I just want to say that HIP holds a special place in my heart. It was one of the first programs that I got connected with Akron Public Schools when I moved here 11 years ago. And I just want to say how impressed I am with the work that has always happened through that program. Katrina Halassa is more than just a force of nature. She is a hurricane times 6. And if you don't believe me, if you've ever been to the science fair, you will know that to be true. I just want to say that HIP is more than deserving of this award. For 20 years, it has been helping students realize their dreams of becoming a healthcare professional in ways in which they may not have been able to realize, because being a doctor might have been the only thing that they knew existed. And you know how people shut down people's dreams because they may not be the best at science, the top performers in science or the top performers in math. But HIP exposes our students to so many different opportunities in healthcare that students are able to be opened up to a whole new world, pun intended. And so I just want to, again, thank Dr. Halassa for all of her hard work that she has done over the last 20 years or however many years you've been a part of that program. I want to thank Daniel for representing the best institution out there. I am a little biased. So go Kent State, go Flashes. And to my buddy Greta, who always holds it down for University of Akron. An amazing job there. So that's all I wanted to say. I just, as a personal connection with the program and these individuals, I just wanted to say how proud I am of you.
Thank you, Dr. Akbar. And again, congratulations to everyone involved. Thank you. At this time, we're going to move on to section 3 in our agenda. And this is our superintendent search. And as everyone knows, and for the benefit of those joining us virtually this evening, Dr. James, after nearly 30 years with the Akron Public Schools and nearly 12 as superintendent, has submitted his letter of retirement to this board, which is effective July 1st, 2021, with his last day at the end of this school year on June 30th of 2021. And I'd like to state again how much this board appreciates the lifetime of service that Dr. James has given to this district and his students. His vision and his leadership have changed the district for better in ways that will be felt certainly for years to come. But his departure leaves us with a very significant challenge of determining who best to lead this district moving forward. A leader who can build on the successes and the momentum of the last several years and really work to take our district to the next level. So our conversation begins tonight as we discuss who will assist us with our search. With input from board members and our current leadership, Dr. Akbar and I have chosen 2 consulting organizations that we will hear from this evening: the Ohio School Boards Association, or OSBA, and K-12 Business Consulting, Inc. And we're very familiar with both organizations, OSBA, of course, being our statewide organization. And we've actually worked with K-12 Business Consulting in the past, as they were the organization that conducted contracted by Ohio Association of School Business Officials, or OASBO, when we did our treasurer search that resulted in us hiring Mr. Pendleton. Both organizations would bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to our efforts. This weekend, I forwarded proposals from each of them to all of our board members. And tonight we're going to hear brief presentations from each. After each presentation, we will allow for a few minutes of questions or comments from any of our board members if you have them. We're not seeking approval tonight on any of the proposals. We will give you, our board, an opportunity to consider the proposals and the presentations and ask the board to select a consulting firm they best feel suits our current needs at our next meeting on the 26th. If any of our board members do have follow-up questions after tonight, I would ask if you can to email them to me by Monday the 19th, that's next Monday, so that I can compile those questions, get them to the consultants, get the answers back, and then forward them to the full board so that everyone has all of the information going into our next meeting. Before we begin our brief presentations, I did want to share just a few points with the board and the public. Choosing a consultant by the 26th does allow us to begin our pre-search efforts and our work with our consultants in November. We'd like to have the position posted in January and complete our search by the end of March. And we'd also like to include some overlap between the successful candidate and Dr. James. And we do fully intend our search process to be open, transparent, and inclusive at all steps of the process. It is important that we hear from the community, our partners, stakeholders, parents, and students. This board will determine the best and most appropriate way to accomplish that in the weeks and months to come. So please stay tuned for that. The selection of a new superintendent may in fact be the single most important decision facing this board right now. And let's not forget that we're conducting this search in the midst of a global pandemic, while we're determining if, when, and how to bring our students and staff back to the classroom, evaluating options for a potential future levy, advocating at the state level for a fair school funding model, and continuing to build on the success and the momentum of the college and career academies and the I Promise partnerships, two initiatives you heard about tonight that this board is deeply committed to and invested in. We have our work cut out for us in the coming months, but I do have faith in our board and our district leadership. We have a long history of being a model in the community for leadership and collaboration. So we will pull together and continue to make our community APS proud. And with that, I'd like to begin our presentations this evening in no particular order other than maybe alphabetical order. We're going to start with K-12 Business Consulting, Inc. They will give us a brief presentation, and then I'll open it up to the board for comments or questions. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Deb Campbell, who I believe has the presentation for K-12.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bravo. And thank you also to Dr. Akbar, because we had a conversation with him and a lot of questions were answered. And congratulations to our good friend, David James. We're always very proud of him. I had the pleasure of working with him when I worked at BASA. Carol Oxley, who is also on this call this evening, had the pleasure of working with him on the executive board. Tom Ash is a part of our team. He's on the call. He had the pleasure of working with Dr. James at BASA, and Chris Moore, our CEU, is on the call also. So I'm going to begin our PowerPoint presentation. And while I do that, I'm going to ask Chris Moore to please just begin with a hello and a little bit about us.
There we go. Had to unmute my speaker. Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Bravo and Board of Education, for inviting K-12 Business Consulting to your meeting this evening. We are very pleased to be here, and we look forward to having an opportunity to work with you on your superintendent search. We've been in business for going on 20 years this coming summer. And we have done several searches all across the state, not only for superintendents and treasurers. So I've got one of the best teams on the ground, with boots on the ground in the state. And I've got three of them on this this call with us: Carol Oxley, Tom Ash, and Deb Campbell. All three past presidents of BASA and are all still active in leadership programs around the state for superintendents and assistant superintendents. Without further ado, Deb, I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right, and I'm going to turn it over to Carol Oxley to talk a little bit about our search consultants.
Thank you so much. It is a great honor and privilege to be here this evening with all of you, and I want to thank you for your hard work. But on a very personal note, I want to tell you that you have just made me a hero in my family. My oldest grandson, who lives in Omaha, Nebraska, was given the option by his mother to hang one poster in his bedroom, and it was LeBron James. So when he hears that I'm presenting to the Akron board with my esteemed colleagues, I will be moving up in status in my own family. So thank you for this opportunity. First of all, I want to talk about Deb Campbell. Deb Campbell would be the lead on this search. Deb Campbell works 24/7. I think she and Dr. James would probably be comparable in their work efforts. She and the rest of the K-12 team are totally devoted to only finding you the very best person to attempt to fill his shoes. She is a former superintendent herself. She's been over 8 years in Clark-Suwanee. She's a past president of BASA, which gives her an unbelievable opportunity to know a network of people, not only in Ohio, but in surrounding states and across the U.S. As a matter of fact, the other night she was just talking to someone that was leading a school system in Japan that wants to come back. So the connections and the ability to get the right person for you is immense. She's also the co-director of all member services for BASA, which means she knows every superintendent and assistant that is working throughout Ohio. Myself, as Deb said, am Carol Oxley. I am the former superintendent of Lima City Schools. Now, I want you to know that we look a lot to Akron because even though we're smaller in number, our dynamic really allows us to understand what you're looking for. Both of us faced about 100% in economic disability, and we got there because we wanted to make sure our students were fed. We wanted to make sure students had meals. We wanted to make sure students were cared for. We at Lima were at a 20% identified students with disabilities, and of course you and Akron are lower with an 18%. We both have struggled with chronic absenteeism. We both have struggled with reconfiguring schools, adding programs so no one would be lost along the way. So I share this with you as a past president also of BASA and as a past superintendent of Lima for 10 years that I am passionate, as the rest of our team, to find the exact fit for you. It isn't about the prestige of being the Akron superintendent. It's about a person who really believes in the potential of students from gifted all the way to identified with special needs. And our team also has Tom Ash. Earlier, you talked about the fact that you were looking at the fair school funding. Well, Tom Ash is the person from BASA that was the director of all government relations after 21 years as a superintendent, of which 15 and a half were spent in East Liverpool, and he was overseeing all of the career tech programs throughout that entire area by nature of his job. He's been honored as a distinguished leader across Ohio, and his work, and again, his network is immense. I bring up our team, which Chris Moore worked very hard to get people really connected to the superintendents already serving in Ohio and across multiple states, because it's about the relationships. Dr. James's strength was in relationships. And we really believe that K-12 with their boots to the ground can really bring you exactly what you're looking for Akron, where you will have choices and people of great interest to continue to move the district forward. So we appreciate you all knowing about our search team because it is critical. Who's on the team? And if they have the time to devote totally to the search is critical. So at this time, let's turn this back to Deb.
Well, thank you, Carol. And I wanted to just highlight some of the differences in our company and other companies that do superintendent searches. One of the things is we have tested protocols that lead to successful searches. Now, everyone is concerned about COVID, and I heard that concern tonight loud and clear. We have conducted multiple searches last year successfully during the COVID crisis, and we worked with school boards to make sure that we could complete searches in a manner that was comfortable for the school board, the school, the staff, and the community. So we do have experience with conducting searches during COVID. We do assign multiple consultants to our searches because we want to make sure every detail is carried out with efficiency. And Carol has identified who those consultants would be for your search if we're fortunate enough to receive the nod. We have strong staff and community involved from the very beginning of the search. And a sample, which you have, and I'm going to quickly go to that sample of how we begin to collect data from your board, your administrators, your teachers, your support staff, parents, and community. This data is collected during either virtual focus groups, or also it can be to us online, but it tells us a little bit about what people think of the Akron schools. It tells us a little bit about what they're facing your district and what you're really looking for in a new superintendent. This is all then put into a document, the superintendent search profile, and you received our search services document, and that profile, you can find that on pages 16 through 27 in that document. And that document does talk about how the data was collected. It talks about, sorry, I have to go back. It was collected, and it talks about parts of what we found throughout the search. Now, this is not a scientific search, but the data that we collect will give you a very comprehensive picture of what the community, the staff, and the administration are all looking for. We also have community involvement then during the interview process. At the interview process for the beginning, the first round interviews, and also again for the second round interviews. So there's really a strong staff and community engagement involvement from the very beginning of the search. Because our CEO is a former treasurer of Dublin City Schools, we do advise the board on wages, and we assist them in the negotiation of a final superintendent contract. We certainly understand that the board has certain perimeters that they will like to be within as far as salary and benefits. We also understand that a candidate will have expectations. So if we can act as the intermediary to negotiate that final contract for you, it makes a better working relationship when you start with your new superintendent. We actively recruit quality candidates. We're some people call us shameless because we will go after people who are very happy in their job, but if they're successful and we think that looking at what your community and your staff and your Board of Education said is important, then we'll go after that candidate. also work with the board and Mark Williamson to make sure that we send consistent messages about the search and its timeline, and make sure that everybody understands what is search. We want to be totally transparent for the board and for the search. And then there are always things that boards of education would like to customize. So we customize our search to try to meet your needs. And Carol's going to talk just a little bit about our 3 levels of searches.
You know, I think that Deb has really demonstrated to you quite clearly the importance of community input, excellent communication, all the pieces that are needed for this search to be successful. And K-12 offers 3 options to you. There, as you can see on your screens, there's a bronze level, a basic level, there's a silver level, and then there's the gold level. And to be very honest, a city the size of Akron would definitely, I would assume, be interested in the gold level. And the reason for that is you have more opportunity for community input. You as a board and as a community would be able to meet candidates not only at meet and greets, but on 2 different occasions in that search. And if board members could go to page 7 and 8 of the superintendent search document, you will be able to see clearly the differences in the different levels between the bronze, the silver, and the gold. And you can see why gold is utilized, because it also gives you an opportunity as community and board people to meet the candidates informally. And that becomes critical when you are selecting someone like Dr. James and someone to fill those kind of shoes. So those are the differences in the searches that we offer. And I invite the board to go in and look further into those descriptions. Thank you, Deb.
Okay, so what we did for you was put together, this is the last couple slides. We tried to organize a timeline. If you would select a gold search, we would try to begin that search process at your board meeting on November 16th. Critical to have set up, to have the interviews set up ahead of time, to have all of the focus groups that are going to happen either virtually or in person set up ahead of time. So that would be our first real getting to know the board and getting to know what kind of a search process you want to set up. Suggest that you would post this statewide in December. A lot of for positions over Christmas break. So we would suggest that a posting from September through March would be able to give you that timeline that Mr. Bravo was talking about before our presentation started. Propose that we hold focus groups in December, either virtually or in person, and around the 1st of December. We would have the folks give us information also via probably a Google Doc that they could complete online, survey the questionnaire, and we would have all of that information then put into a search profile. And that really guides us with our recruiting process because superintendents want to know a little bit about what the district has to offer, what challenges they would make. So it's a really good recruiting tool for us to use. And it's also a great springboard for you to understand some of the wants and desires of your community. So we would present that profile to you February 11th at your regular board meeting. And again, you can look at that profile on pages 16 through 27 in the document that we provided for you. We would make the application deadline around March. What we would do after that is we would present the candidates to the board at a regular board meeting. Now I'm going to quickly move ahead so I can show you some of the tools that we use to present. When we present the candidates to the board, we present them in an upside down stoplight. And what we do is we tell you which candidates that have applied for your position might be a good fit for the profile that was developed. We just feel like you're asking for our expertise. Now, that being said, you may choose any candidate that you wish to interview, because we are not going to tell you who to interview. We are going to give you a guideline to follow, but we're not going to tell you who to interview. We are going to let you see all of the candidates, and they will be presented to you in a secure portal, and you will see all of their information. And you will also have a document that you can use to look through that tells a little bit about each summary of each candidate. We would first round interviews in mid-March, second round interviews in March, around in 24th, and then you would be able to hire your superintendent by March 29th for that that you would like them to start. Now, I heard you say might be leaving sooner than we have here on this. You might want that person to start sooner, so we can change that if we are fortunate enough to be able to work with you. A quick presentation. I'm sure you have questions, so I'm going to give you time now to ask those questions. I'll hopefully be able to answer them.
Thank you to the K-12 team for your presentation. We are going to open it up for a couple of minutes for questions or comments from our board. Dr. Hall and then Mr. Alexander.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. I have what I think are probably a couple softball questions. And I'm going to ask the same questions of the other group that's presenting tonight. So if they want to incorporate these answers into their talk, that's fine too. But so I was just curious. So 20 years K-12 has been in business. I think is what I heard you say. 20 years. How many superintendent searches have you done in 20 years?
Well, over 100. Probably not quite 200, but we've done a lot.
Okay. How many in urban districts, like that are similar in size to Akron or larger?
Well, we've never done one as large as Akron. We've done Middletown, Springfield, Newark. Lakota Local is not an urban, but they're about 18,000 student district. We typically do not look necessarily towards large school districts to do searches with. So,
okay, gotcha. Have you ever done any national searches where you're looking at where we're searching outside of Ohio?
Yes.
Okay, can I ask you how many?
Probably about a dozen over the years. Okay. Most school districts in Ohio don't necessarily specifically, even though we offer that, do national searches. Gotcha. They typically want to hire somebody from Ohio because it's Ohio law, Ohio school finance, Ohio. But yes, we do, and we have.
So, okay, thank you. So with the goal level plan, is that cost higher then? So hypothetically, we said we wanted to do a national search. Would that cost be then higher than the 17,900 number that I think I saw referenced?
Yeah. The last one we did was for Trotwood Madison. And it's largely just the cost of the advertising because that is not inexpensive. And that would roughly be about $4,500 if you went with like AASA or Ed Week, something like that. If you wanted to do more than that, then the cost would go up. We manage the advertisements that go out and the postings, and whatever the cost is, we just funnel that on. There's no markups or anything like that.
Great. And then I just have one more question. Do you have any data? So again, having done, over 100 and, probably just shy of 200 searches, do you have any data on how long your placed candidates actually stay in the positions that you recruit them to?
That's a really good question. One of the reasons why you would want to hire us is because we do make a solid connection, kind of like electric plug in the wall. We check to see what you're looking for. We see what your community, your staff is looking for. We also work with the candidates to make sure as we talk to them, they don't just apply and we just shove them in the door. We talk to them. We do the investigation around their background. We talk to them about what the situation in Akron is, whether good, bad, what the challenges are. We make sure they understand that and that they can convince us or show us they've actually dealt with those things. That way, when they come in and talk to you, they generally start to begin to have a feel for what you're looking for. And when a person makes a nice fit, they tend to stay longer in those situations. So our candidates typically do stay longer. Like, can I say exactly how long? I would say in general, it seems like most of our candidates stay somewhere between the 4 and 8 year mark in most school districts that we work with, some longer, some shorter. And sometimes that depends, Mr. Hall, Dr. Hall, on change in board elections as well. Sometimes that may not have a thing to do with the candidate, how well they are doing. It just may have a change in board elections. Oftentimes these days can be a coin toss a lot of times on whether the superintendent wants to stay or vice versa.
Roger that. Yeah. So I appreciate the candor in answering that question. When you're looking at, so I know that you mentioned that you've done some districts that look a little, they may not be the same size as us. I'm sorry, I lied. I did have one more question. I know that you've done some searches for districts that may not be the size of Akron, but that would have maybe an urban sort of a flavor, if you will. So in that smaller cohort, again, school board elections aside, I mean, again, correlation is not causation. So I'm not asking the question seeking to hold you accountable. That number is lower or higher, but I just was curious, if you have any, if you've sort of done the data digging and can kind of answer for a smaller cohort, what your average that we can look at. It's like 3.8 years for district in general. I think is some of the data that I've seen.
991. No,
right.
Yeah. Well, Marlon at Marlon Styles at Middletown is going on his 4th year and doing strong. We hear good things there. Bob Hill at Springfield is, Bob's been there for probably 6 years, and again going well. We just concluded the Newark search. So David Lewis, he's just off and running there right now. We've also, while it's not superintendent searches, we have done treasurer searches for Toledo, Cincinnati. Let's see, Lima. I mean, so we've done searches for large organizations, at least in the treasurer ranks. Like I said, I'll be very honest with you, we've not gone out seeking large school district search work. The mechanics are the same. The number of people involved in community engagement at the front end and the back end, we would anticipate would be a higher number, but the process is the same and the mechanics work the same.
Do you mind if I ask why you haven't sought out larger districts? I mean, because again, you said that a couple of times. I just was curious. Is there a reason why?
It takes a lot more time to work with bigger organizations than it does smaller, generally speaking.
Okay, Roger that. And then the last thing, I'm sorry, this really is the last question. In the national searches that you've done, I think you said about a dozen. Any commentary about how long those candidates have lasted in the roles in which you recruited them to?
Well, a lot of times that we've done national searches and we've brought national candidates from Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, and surrounding states. The Board of Education, these guys are laughing because they know the Board of Education more times than not will pick the Ohio candidate because they can answer the question more. They know about our laws. They know about our intricacies of levies and things, and they're just able to answer the question much more detailed. That's pretty much what I would tell you about those. But we just brought a person in to Miamisburg from a superintendent from Indiana. but that's not that, Indiana from where she was coming from was really only about 2 hours away from Miamisburg, which is just southwest of Dayton. But
Fantastic.
And
Thank you for your
Chris, may
time.
I add
appreciate
that
it.
we did the Westlake City School search, and we did have national candidates there. And like Chris said, the board felt more comfortable with the Ohio candidates because they knew there wasn't a learning curve for them with school finance and legality and all of those issues. So I just wanted to stress we can bring those candidates, but we don't know for sure that that will be the board's choice.
Okay. And I'm sorry. I gotta just, I guess the follow-up question here. Sorry. Thank you. Sorry. I apologize to my colleagues for hogging the time here. Hopefully I'm asking questions that they were going to ask too. But are you experienced recruiting sort of diverse candidates as well? So obviously equity is a big part of who we are and what we do. Just if you can talk about, and then that's my last question. But if you can just comment on sort of your experience and within the context of sort of that, in that inclusion lens.
Well,
Chris,
ahead.
I was going to say, probably one of the searches we did, it was a very small district, but it was Yellow Springs. And if you're familiar with Yellow Springs, it's a very diverse community, and they wanted diverse candidates, and we were able to bring them very diverse candidates. We also just placed an African-American at the search we did. They were also looking for diverse candidates, and that person was placed at Sylvania City Schools. So we have the capability of bringing diverse candidates. We just need to know the types of diversity you would like us to look for, because diversity comes in lots of shapes and forms.
Right. And I would say Middletown, Marlon Stiles. The runner up there was Gabe Lofton. He's the superintendent of Xenia right now. We just placed Reva Cosby at Trotwood, African-American female. We had done the search a few years before that at Trotwood as well. Also placed an African-American male there. There are good candidates there, and we definitely go after those candidates.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Mr. Alexander?
Yes, thank you all for coming today and presenting to us. And Dr. Hall did ask a couple questions that I asked, and then I was going to ask, and I'm glad that he did. But you mentioned not going into searches for large districts, and that was explained. So that was one of the questions. One of the other questions was, you talk about the longevity of superintendents, and they some of the research that I've read, in the past, and not recently, not too far, is that a lot of superintendents nowadays don't stay as long. And when you guys are searching for those individuals, are you looking for candidates who are going to be with the school district for a while, a long period of time with longevity, or are there those that are looking for just shorter periods of time? Because, and I have to only speak for myself. For me, I would like someone with a little more longevity who's going to be with our district, because when you start continuity of services and things of that nature, you got to have someone who's there, because if you stop in the middle, then you're going to lose some continuity. And what happens, the district doesn't just lose, it's the kids that lose too. And I don't want anything to happen where our kids are losing. They're losing enough now with a lot of stuff that's going on in the world now. So that was one of my second questions. So what do you guys do as far as recruiting those type of individuals?
Well, I will say that certainly you have been fortunate to have Dr. James there for as long as you've had. I was the superintendent in my district for 8 years, and Carol was the superintendent in her district for 10 years. And I know you heard of Tom's longevity. So that is important to us. We understand that the research tells us that a superintendent needs to be in a district for 5 to 7 years to make a difference. And so we specifically look for those kinds of candidates that are willing to make the commitment. And I think the way you get those kind of candidates is when you do your homework, you're very transparent about the district, and you guys have so many wonderful programs going. You want those to continue, but you will have challenges too. And if you're transparent about what the good things are in the district and what's happening as the challenges, then it really helps the longevity of a candidate. And you know, we like for our candidates to stay 8 to 10 years, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my hope too, that we'd have somebody who would be 8 to 10 years, because, you know, for this board and maybe even future boards, we want to make sure they have someone that they can work with for a period of time, so they know what's going on. They know each other, just like Dr. James. He's been here in the district for a long time working, but we, as a superintendent, we've been able to work with him and do a lot of good things for the district. So for me personally, I'm looking for someone who can, you know, meet the needs that he has, or someone who's just as good as him, if not better. I know it's going to be tough, but still, I look for that to happen in the superintendent search. And my second question is, you mentioned focus groups that you have. Who are the participants? Who all participates in those focus groups?
Well, we have the administrative team. We have the Board of Education that we do not participate in a group, but we gather information from them. We have the teachers. We have I was trying to think real quickly. We have the support staff in those focus groups. We have parents. We have key community members. We also have your people who have worked on your levy campaign. We have your mayor. We have all of those kind of people. And probably one of our most pleasurable things to do is to have students. Yeah. We always interview students and have them a part of the development of that superintendent search profile that will tell us what everyone is looking for. So the community, the parents, the students, the support staff, teachers, administrators, board are all a part of that gathering of data.
And Mr. Alexander, you know, districts your size have lots of entanglements in the community. A program that we just watched tonight, the HIP program, I saw 3 people that we would typically want to have involved in coming and talk to us a little bit about what they would think because of their interactions with the district. So we'd want to know all of those type of organizations that you have so that those folks could be invited. And it typically comes from the board specifically to invite them to come meet with us. And we hopefully will be able maybe to do some of this face to face. We much prefer that over these wonderfully technical contraptions here, but it makes it much more personal. And that's how we like to do business, personal, if we can.
And I noticed in your on your website when I was researching your district, you have a tremendous business partner base, and tied to all of your high schools. So we would have a special focus group for those people because they are your key communicators and your key support.
And we typically will be doing that over 2 days, not back to back. They're usually one week, one the next week, in case people might not be able to come one week. But we do offer, you know, community forums at the end of those days for anybody that wants to come and talk to us and share information with us that they have. And we ask them to fill out a form there, but also just engage in back and forth communication stuff. So that way, we really want to, if somebody wants to offer us input on your superintendent search, we want it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, yes. Good. You hit all the points there, because those are all the areas that you really need to on those individuals, because we do have some great stakeholders here in our school district, and a lot of good people, and of course, above all, our students are very, very important to us. So thank you very much.
We go to the school. We go to your schools where we can to meet with typically your high school students, not just your National Honor Society or student council people. We want student leaders, and those usually end up being some pretty good sized groups, actually.
Yeah, we like a cross section of the students that we're going to talk with. So, you know, we want to be sure that we're hearing voices from all the students.
Yes, and that's very important, hearing from all students, not just some, but all the students. Righty, okay. All right, thank you very much.
And that questionnaire would be online and all students could participate.
Okay.
Great.
You know, one thing I forgot to show you is we try to keep you organized. This is one of our binders for the interview process, and it keeps your questions and everything organized for you. So we do organize you for your interviews. We try to make everything easy for you, and I forgot to show that to you. This is a different format for us. We're used to using a different format, so I'm sorry if it seemed a little shaky.
It's okay.
But thank you so much for allowing us to present.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, we do want to thank the folks from K-12 for taking time out of your Monday evening to join us. Great presentation. We appreciate that. And we will be back in contact with you shortly. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And at this time, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Steve Horton from the Ohio School Board Association for their presentation. Mr. Horton? You're muted, sir. Happens to the best of us.
Is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
All right. Let me bring that up to you now. Okay, how does that look on your end?
Looks great.
Great. Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Mr. Bravo and the rest of the Akron board for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to share with you some thoughts and insights about our search process. My intention tonight is to give you a good picture of how our search process works and answer your questions. I want you to go away having those answered before we're done tonight. And as always, if you have any other questions, you can always reach out to me. But it is a pleasure to be here on behalf of our other two consultants. Cheryl Ryan and Terry Morgan are actually both involved with other districts tonight, but we will be working on your search and moving forward. The one important thing to know about our search processes with all of them that we do, and it really has to do with, regardless of the size of the district, is that we have a large organization. We have an organization of our search consultants. We have 2 administrative assistants in the office that assist us with that work, but we also have a communications department, a legal department, a legislative department. They're all involved in the searches that we do. So we bring a large organization to you, and it's been our pleasure to be your professional organization for a long time. So with that said, I like this statement about just knowing that a strong search has everything to do with the search consultants. We believe that it has to be comprehensive and transparent. It's a process that needs to have integrity. And when we're done, we are searching for that person that's going to be a match for Akron City Schools and to lead your district. There are certainly very large shoes here to follow as we seek a new person to lead your district. So about the search itself, it is your most critical decision. And that's why it's such a pleasure to be here to talk to you. It's why it is a service that we offer through OSBA that we take very, very seriously, because as we work with boards of education in a variety of ways, there is nothing more important than making sure that you have the right superintendent in place to lead your district and to lead it with fidelity and passion. We know that the best searches happen when we have the commitment and the attention of the entire board. It is something that involves the entire board. And so our search process is designed to make sure that you're engaged throughout, and absolutely connected to the work that goes into finding a new leader. One of the things that we most definitely do, and it's our core, is working with boards of education. Everything that we do in our search, everything that we do, period, is very board centered. We have, those of us involved have been board members. We have superintendents in our organization, and we fully understand what is so important for the board and as you move forward with your search. So ultimately, you own the process. We are here to work through that process with you to make sure that you're on task, that everything is working on schedule, and that it is a search that goes smoothly. It most importantly ends with a very solid appointment of the right person in the superintendent's seat. So it is important to know that everything we do is from board's perspective. So as far as the process, I'm going to break it down and talk about what we do and maybe some of the things that make us unique in the way that we approach searches. So we have to find that superhero to fill some pretty big shoes and take over in your district. We do have to work with you to build a criteria for the search. That's work that we do right at the very beginning. And it's also work that we are devoted to with the community stakeholders. As you already heard, we are very much committed to making sure that the community is involved, that it is administration, teachers, support staff, community leaders, parents. Yes, we do hear from students, and we've done that in person with every superintendent search we do. Last spring, in fact, with one of the searches that I did down in the Cincinnati area, Mount Healthy, one of the things that they really struggle with is community engagement and getting people to community focus groups. And so at the time we ended up doing the search, we didn't do those in person, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, but we did do it electronically. And so the electronic portion of this is very important because that garnered a lot of information and involvement that the board admitted if they had done those in person, they probably wouldn't have had as strong of involvement in that. So we were able to share quite a bit more with the board through that. So I pandemic or not, I really believe in the electronic approach to getting input from people, being able to share that with you. Everything that we collect goes into a report that goes back to you. So it's valuable information for you. The other thing that we always do in conjunction with our communication department is we develop a full color brochure that becomes the tool that we use anytime we are talking to candidates, when we're posting the job, and the work that we do to develop that pool of candidates centers around this brochure. Invariably, as I'm talking to candidates, they want to see that brochure. And they want to know what's in there because it's full of information that they need to make a good decision about whether or not this district is a good fit for them. So we do believe in involving district stakeholders throughout the search. That is just an important aspect of the superintendent search. Recruiting is the other part. A lot of work goes into this. We have very wide databases. We have as big a database as anybody in the state in terms of potential candidates, connections with our districts statewide. But we also have a connection with a group called NAS, and this is very important to us in the work that we do. NAS stands for the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers. We do this through NSBA, the National School Boards Association, and so we are connected with 38 other state associations that are involved in superintendent searches. And that connection is huge for us. It's a tool that allows us to really expand our reach and to have connection literally across the country. So we're working with them not just on recruiting and developing the candidate pool, but we also work with them on best practices and idea sharing. Information we share between us and NAS is invaluable. It is important to know that with any search we do, We do not work on behalf of candidates. It is our mission in the searches we do to make sure that we are gathering a strong pool of candidates to present to you, and we do that very successfully, to be able to look at, to evaluate, and it's done in a way that is not weighted or biased in any way. And so I think that is very important and critical to the work that we do on behalf of the school board. Screening is a big process and very, very important. That criteria that we build, both through our work with you as a school board and through the focus groups, all of that information we get is that valuable tool that we use to evaluate the candidates that come into the pool. So yes, we do screen internally, and we have outside people from outside OSBA that bring different perspectives, look at the candidates. We work together in developing the candidate ratings that we would bring to you. And we use it through a proprietary tool that we've been working on for a long time now. I remember when I first came on with OSBA, it was kind of a hybrid approach. Candidates went online and they submitted the application materials, but then those got printed out and they got put into paper folders, which I never much liked because I didn't think it gave the board a real insight. I like the transparency of making sure that the board knows who all the candidates are in their pool. So we do rate the candidates, but we make sure that you have the final say. And you have the ability through our online tool that we've called Revelis, that we've been developing. It's now a very robust and complete tool for receiving applications and working with you to review those applications. But it's important to know that we don't make choices for you. You will know who we think fit the criteria and who we think is potentially the best candidates for the district. But it's ultimately up to you who moves on in the process to that candidate evaluation process. We work with the board to develop the interviews, contact and schedule. Working with you is very important to make sure that the interviews go well, that they provide the kind of insight that you need for the candidates. Here's a place where I always go back to the information that we gather early on through the focus groups, through our conversations with you, to incorporate that into the interviewing process. We also work very closely with the board in developing an interview process that can involve stakeholders as well. As you've already heard, and it is very important, that stakeholders have the ability to provide input and have the ability to be a part of the process. And so we work with the board in developing that. There's another thing that we use and have been using for a long time now. Ironically enough, in my work, back when I was a board member and working in the corporate world, we used an assessment developed by the same company that has worked with us to develop the Achiever for all the hiring that we did in the company that I was with. It's been a company that's worked with organizations and companies all over the country for years. And they worked with us specifically to develop an assessment specifically for evaluating superintendent candidates. It is not the end all, but it is a valuable insight into a candidate's cognitive abilities, their personality traits, their communication styles. There's so much in the report for the candidates come back to you. So all of our finalist candidates go through the Achiever, and you get to see that result. And it is very scientifically based. It's extremely accurate. So that's another tool that we bring to the table so that you can have a better insight and ultimately make a better appointment for your district. And then I really want to make it clear that one of the things that we take very, very seriously is we don't ever just finish a superintendent search and then walk away and say we're done. Our connection to you is both professional as your organization, but it's also our commitment to be there as support for boards of education. That's our core mission. and it's what we are all about. And so we believe very strongly that if we need to, we'll reopen a search. I had a district treasurer search that I did, and for personal reasons, they lost treasurer that was put in place, a candidate that they were extremely happy with. He was doing great work, but he moved on to be able to work in his hometown, and that was 8 months after we had just done a search. So we went back up to them and we reopened that search, and were able to place another candidate for them with that reopening process. Another important point that I wish more boards would take advantage of, because I think it's a huge advantage, is that we'll come back within 6 months and facilitate a communication workshop just to help you as a leadership team get on good footing with your new superintendent, that all of you can develop the means by which you want to communicate and work together. It's a time to get together and talk about what's been working well, what could work better, what would we like to see, how would we like to do things as we move forward. Those are extremely useful times together. The boards don't often get, those one-on-one facilitated meetings are huge for board, superintendent, and treasurer communication as a leadership team. So we hope you'll take advantage of that too as part of the process. I have thought about timeline, and you had already indicated, Mr. Bravo, that you want to be able to get this started in November, which would be when we would come together to plan the meetings. And so the initial planning meeting is so important, because that's where we set the actual timeline that we will run the search on. And as a facilitator, it's my job to be communicating with you throughout to make sure that we're on task, that we are in line with the timeline that was set. If that meeting in November gives us time to develop the brochure, it gives us time to work with the focus groups, whether that's electronically or in person or both. We could do either way. And focus groups for a district the size of Akron is a big function. There's a lot of people to meet with. And so that is a big consideration that we would hope to be doing in December, prior to actually opening the search. And so my thought was to open the search in December, have that recruiting period through January. I like to have at least 6 weeks that we work building that candidate pool, so that we can come together, conduct first round interviews in February, conduct second round interviews in March, so that you are able to take action and have your new superintendent in place in March. Because I know that being able to have that overlap time to have a new person come in and get oriented to the district and the position, and to be able to work in the district prior to that official start is important to you. And that certainly is possible with this timeline. So just some final thoughts before I open it up to questions. First of all, we've been at it a long time. We've been doing searches as an organization for over 30 years. We've done over 1,000 successful searches. I think it's probably suffices to say that at one time or another, our organization's probably worked with pretty much every district in the state. It is experience and knowledge really from the top down that is so invaluable to our work as we do searches together. All of us in the search division, the three of us consultants who work directly with boards of education, like I said, always work together as we're working through searches, but each of us has been board members. We have also, like I said, superintendents and other administrators within our ranks at OSBA, and it's just really the experience that makes such a huge difference. The Revelis tool that I talked about was something that we've developed, and it really was because at one time, and this goes back probably 7 or 8 years now, we looked at the way we were doing searches and said, there are aspects of our search service that we feel like we need to improve. And so Revelis has spoken to those. rather than trying to cobble something together or take an off-the-shelf, system that's designed for a corporation, not a school district and a superintendent search, we started from scratch and built a very robust product. In fact, it's one now that more and more districts or more and more organizations across the NAS organization that I spoke about are now using. And one of the things that has been a real boost for all of us is we are able to share searches with those other organizations that are doing searches, and everybody has commented that it has really brought more national attention to the searches that we do. And then our national candidates, which we always have national candidates outside of Ohio in our superintendent pools, but that's actually increased. And I've been very, very happy with the diversity of the candidate pools. And I think the Riddle has a lot to do with that. The Achiever is just important insight into the candidate. It's additional information that you have as insight before you actually go into second round interviews with finalist candidates. It's a huge tool for you to be able to use. And then there's the guarantee. Your district's health and well-being is absolutely more important to us than anything else. We want to make sure that your district is solid, that you have the right leader in place, and that we can move forward with you as a member of our organization with the right leader leading your district. So that is the broad overview of our search service. I am more than happy to take questions from all of you, so I'll open it up to that now.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. We appreciate your presentation and for you joining us again tonight. We're going to open it up for questions and comments. Dr. Hall is first.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks much, Mr. President. So some of the questions you've already answered for me in your presentation. So thanks for doing that.
Oh.
You referenced you referenced NAS.
Mm-hmm.
The national affiliation of superintendent searches, and you kind of and you emphasize the national connectivity that you have through that entity. Having said that, how many national searches have you done?
Well, actually, over the years we've done quite a few. I did one last year with Canton. It absolutely was nationally focused. Dayton. In our past history, Toledo, those were very much urban districts that were a national focus outside of the state of Ohio. I did Mount Healthy's search. It was a much smaller urban district in the Cincinnati area, but I did that this last spring, and we had 3 candidates in that pool that were from out of state. But not very many districts actually hire the out-of-state candidates. I think it's a great measure to see, measure different candidates against each other, to have that view of candidates that are coming from outside of the state. But in terms of actually hiring in Ohio, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's over 700 school districts of different forms in the state of Ohio, that there's a huge pool right here in the state. And we talked to our colleagues from like North Carolina. Over 50% of the searches they do feature out-of-state candidates that are actually placed in those positions, but they have much fewer districts and just a smaller pool of candidates to choose from. So they almost have to rely on that. But having that view nationally is important.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And then with over 1,000 searches, I'll ask the same question I asked the K-12. Do you have any data on how long candidates stay in their positions?
We did. Was it 3 years ago? We did kind of an audit for ourselves internally, looking at searches going back in our history and who we've placed. And we found out that over 80% of those searches had candidates that had been on the job for at least 4 years. And many, many more of them more. So that's the most recent information I have. But I feel like we've done quite well at putting the right person in place with the board and helping them choose the person that's going to be there for enough time to be effective.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so from an equity standpoint, I mean, do you automatically seek to recruit diverse, or I guess my question is that your default mode, or do we have to ask you for that? Because I feel like that's something that we shouldn't have to ask for. I feel like that's something that should just be kind of hardwired into the process, right? I mean, so
I agree with you 100% there.
Okay.
That is not something you have to ask for. My goal with any search is to make sure that that pool is as broad and deep as possible to bring to all of you.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. And then the last question I had for now was, thinking through, it sounds like you referenced Canton, you referenced Dayton, so it sounds like you've done these kinds of searches for districts like our the similar size and makeup as ours is what it sounds like. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, we have, and so within our organization, like I said, we've worked with so many different districts of all sizes and all demographics. The most recent superintendent search that I completed was the one that I mentioned down in Cincinnati with Mount Healthy. It's a district that's 82% poverty, and they're also over 80% African American, and it's a district that has a lot of challenges. And I was very, very pleased with the level of candidates that we were able to present to them, the quality of the candidates. They were pleased as well. So it's something that we feel strongly about.
Okay, great. And last question. You referenced that there was a candidate that you placed that left, I think you said left within 8 months.
Yeah.
Because there was a position that was in their hometown or near their hometown. So it maybe it really kind of jogged my memory. It's a question I wanted to ask the previous group and I didn't. So they want to weigh in, they're more than welcome. But if we bring a candidate on, so whichever group we go with, if you bring a candidate on and they leave within let's say 8 months, and we're back to doing another search again, I mean, do you do the next search at no cost or reduced cost?
Well, it's no cost. That's our commitment. We will absolutely come back and reopen that search for you. Now we're talking about something that hasn't happened very often, but it's absolutely there. That is our commitment to you. The only thing that gets actually comes back to the district would be any mileage or extraneous expenses, but those are usually pretty minimal in that reopen.
Fantastic. And I think I saw a chat. I think the other group wants to answer that question too. And then that's the end of my questions, Mr. Bravo.
Thank you. Ms. McKittrick and then Mr. Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one quick question. How diverse is your search team?
Well, there's me and 2 women that are doing the searches. They're actually conducting the searches. We are white, if that's what you're asking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McKittrick. Mr. Alexander.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Steve. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Hey, I have 2 questions. You mentioned a screening team that you have. You said it's an inside and outside evaluators. Can you explain that a little bit more and give maybe an example or so of that?
Well, we have several people that we work with and have worked with from outside that are very much connected to the educational world. 2 of those people I've worked with are professors that work specifically with former superintendents, now professors that work with training professors. We have a couple of people who are active superintendents, retired superintendents that just help us. And I like to be able to work with people regionally and that understand the demographics of the district that I'm working with. So if it's a rural district, there are kind of go-to people that I like to call on. If it's an urban district, again, there are people that understand that demographic and are very skilled at looking at and evaluating candidates.
Okay. And the other one is your Revelous. What is what is that product? And can you explain that a little bit more as well?
Yeah, it's the name actually is a derivative of the Latin term to reveal. But we created a product or an online platform that answered a lot of the questions for us. The big thing that we wanted was we wanted candidates to have a good experience when they apply. And in fact, I have had more than one candidate come back and thank me for the application process through the software. So they have an intuitive, professional platform with which they present the information. All of that is kept in Revelis and done in a way that it makes screening the candidates, both for you as a board, because each one of you as board members will have a secure portal to go in and look at all the candidates and evaluate. But for us also as screeners, it makes it much easier to look at education history, work history, references, resume, cover letters. We have questions that we ask through our application that they answer. That I always encourage boards to look at that when you're looking at the candidates, because those answers are insightful. All of those things that are included in that application are very clearly laid out and make it very easy to go in and look at that information. And it's consistent from candidate to candidate. So it really has transformed our process in the way we go about doing the searches.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from our board?
Mr. President, I saw that there was in the chat, Ms. Reynolds, I think, wanted to answer the question about that Mr. Horton answered about, about doing a reduced cost or no cost search of the candidate sort of leaves too early. I want to make sure that she had time to answer that.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. We'll do this one, but I'm going to ask that any other questions be answered in writing, and we'll just get that out to the board in the interest of time. Other presentations and discussions tonight. So thank you for pointing that out, but after this one, we're going to keep moving forward. Ms. Campbell?
Thank you very much. Dr. Hall, I wanted just to reassure you that just like OSBA, if something doesn't work out, we again come in and do the search for no cost. One thing that we do is we do midterm checks with the board president and the candidates in November, again in January, again in March, to make sure that everything is going well with the board and with the candidates so that we can resolve any issues early on. So we've been asked to do that. A successful superintendent will go too quickly on trying change initiatives, and the board president will say, you need to talk to them, and our consultants will go out and meet with them. But any other questions, we'll be glad to answer, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Any other comments or questions for OSBA?
No.
All right, hearing and seeing none. Thank you so much, Mr. Horton, for joining us tonight. Thanks to Deb Campbell and Mr. Moore and their team for joining us this evening, for your presentations, lots of good questions. And just a reminder to our board, we're not seeking any action on either of the proposals this evening. Time to let those breathe a little bit with you. If you have questions, though, or follow-up questions that you'd like to submit, we want to make sure that everyone gets the same information back. Email those to me by Monday, October, please not December, but October 19th. File those, get those out to the consultants, and get the answers back to the full board so that everyone has the same information moving forward. So again, we want to thank our consultants for coming on and joining us tonight. We know this was time out of your evening, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We hope to have the opportunity to work with you, and I definitely appreciate you giving me this opportunity to share with you. It's as a liaison for OSBA for their urban network of districts that we work with. Urban is my passion. I come from an urban district, and I would love nothing more than have the opportunity to work with all of you. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
And thank you to the board for letting us have some time this evening to share those consultants with you. We look forward to picking up this discussion at our next meeting. But at this time, we are going to move forward with the rest of our agenda. We do have still some discussions yet to have around reopening this evening by going to our approval of the meeting minutes for our regular meeting from Monday, September 28th, 2020. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Ms. Humphrey and Mr. Alexander, for the motion and the second. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes?
I think that was Dr. Akbar. Second.
Sorry, Dr. Akbar. I thought I.
It's okay. We both look good, so.
All right. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Hate when you do that to me, Ryan. Yes.
right?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent's recommendations, personnel.
Mr. President, I wish to recommend approval of the personnel recommendations presented in categories 5 through 16.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
All right. We have Ms. Mansfield and Ms. McKittrick with a motion and a second. Any comments, questions, or discussion on the personnel agenda items? Hearing and seeing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield. Thank you.
Next, Mr. President, I wish to recommend approval of the resolutions and motions presented in category 21.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you. I heard Dr. Akbar and Ms. McKittrick, and I heard you that time, Doc. Any comments, questions, or discussion on the consent agenda items? Yes, Mr. Akbar.
So I just have two. One, I just wanted to recognize the 21st Century Grant that supports the Akron after-school programs, which, as you all know, I think is very critical right now with everything that's going on. So I just wanted to mention that and thank the city for that grant. And then we also AMHA as well. I want to thank them as well.
That, Dr. Thank you. For anyone else with comments, questions on consent agenda? Roll call. Hearing is.
Dr. Akbar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick.
Yes.
Thank you.
And finally, Mr. President, I wish to recommend approval of the business affairs recommendations presented in category 23.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McKittrick and Ms. Mansfield. Any comments, questions, or discussion on business affairs? And if, okay, hearing and seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.